On this episode, I talk about Google Sheets and some of its potential uses in the classroom. This is Edtech Library, episode number 5, Google Sheets. What's up, everyone, and welcome to Edtech Library. My name's Mike. After about 30,000 different takes today, a couple mishaps where I chopped my head off during filming earlier on. Here I am wrapping up episode 5 at home. And on this episode, I'll be talking about Google Sheets. Now, this is hardly going to cover everything that Sheets can do. This is going to be more of an introductory video. There will be some future videos which I'll talk more in depth about some of the features that Sheets has to offer. But as in the previous episode, Google Drive, episode 1 actually, which is now going to be carded up here, the true potential in a lot of applications within the Drive, including Sheets, lies in the ability for these applications to adopt add-ons. And so I'm not really going to go too much into the add-ons that are available within the Drive. I'm just going to be talking about some of the basic features that Google Sheets has to offer, as well as some of the potential uses you might have in your classroom. So without any further ado, let's head to the look-in to see what Google Sheets has to offer. So here we are on the inside of Google Sheets, or rather my Google Drive at this point. And I want to show you real quick how to make a new Google Sheet. I've already prepared one, which we'll take a look at momentarily. But to create a new sheet, you can see the inside of my Drive. All I have to do is click on the New button, and that's going to allow me to create a new Google Sheet. When I click on that, it will open in a new window, a brand new tab, and a brand new sheet. So I'm going to take a look over here in the Google Drive. Now, you could say that some of these actions or some of these different uses are kind of redundant, depending on what your student information system looks like or how it's used, or even like how it fits into your workflow. Some of these may not be worth your time, and I understand that, but there are some possible uses for things such as, if we start here, I usually like to do a parent information collection at the beginning of the year. Typically, the way I do this is through some sort of form, or it could be digital, maybe on an open house night, or possibly you send something home with your students to bring home, and then they bring it back the next day with an email address. I like using email addresses, and sometimes they're not always updated in the system. And so having this sheet is really great because it allows me to have quick access to those emails. And additionally, you can use Google Sheets to create what's called a mail merger. And the mail merger allows you to send out a standard message to a large group of people. And it's going to use the information that's within this sheet to do that. So that's a really great feature, which I'll show you in a future episode of Edtech Library. But here you can see a very basic sheet. I set up a parent's names over here, along with their email addresses. You could try to collect other information if you want, or include the section for comments, things like that. But here, real simple, just a couple different columns. And some of the features that are included here, obviously I can input new data. So I'll put in some notes. So if a parent had notes to include, I can put that in there too as well. And we can just add information such as maybe you put a phone number in there or something like that. But I'm just going to keep it as is for now. Now, one of the great things about Sheets, there's a lot of different ways that we can cut and chop and view this different data. Let's say I have a whole bunch of different parents, so I only have 17 listed there now. But if I had, let's say, 100, it can make it a lot more difficult to figure out what I'm looking at, especially if there's multiple columns of information. So I'm just going to freeze this first row, and you'll notice the first row across the top is now no longer moving. So as I move down the screen here, you'll see notes and email address stays exactly where it is. So as I get down here to parent number, let's say 50, one of the things that also you'll be able to see across the top is where the email address and the notes are. You can also do the same thing with the columns, where we freeze the columns. Now, I probably wouldn't collect so much information that I would have to scroll to the right to see more data about a particular parent or a particular student. But there are some cases where it may work well for you. So in addition to freezing different rows, I'm going to unfreeze that. We can do some things such as if I wanted to organize this row. So let's say I wanted to organize this row alphabetically, which probably wouldn't make much sense. Let me try this row. If I alphabetize this list, I can click on this arrow, this down arrow, and I can sort by A to Z. So I can actually sort this whole list. So if I wanted to go by last name or by first name, I can do that. Now there's also some things we can do with formatting. So if I click on this row and I wanted to give it a little bit of, distinction, I can add what's called conditional formatting, and I can, of course, make it bold, italics, underline, straight through. And if I go to conditional formatting, I can actually do stuff like change the color. So maybe at this row, if the cell is not empty, I can make it turn like a yellow color. And so you'll see now every single box that's filled or every single cell that's filled has color. So as I add a new cell, so parent number 18 is now going to turn yellow. So that's a really neat feature too. Of course, there's plenty of different colors available to choose from. So I'm just going to get rid of that rule so it goes back to where it was. So you can do conditional formatting such as that. And ones like, say, for example, if I have one in this row where I wanted to format it so I could see which parents didn't give me an email address, I can do the same thing. So if I have the cell is not empty, you'll see here parent 18 has no email. So that particular email address is now blank, or that space is now blank. So parent 19 down here gave me their email. And you can see that parent 18 now stands out a little bit. So some of this conditional formatting can be used to create a good level of distinction in some of your spreadsheets. So moving on, I created very briefly, you may think, again, this is a little bit redundant because you probably get this information updated to you daily, but especially with how easy this is, you could create like a daily or weekly spreadsheet for attendance and have this open on your computer. And if you're sharing this with your colleagues, you can work together to see which students are in and which students are out. Now, particularly in team teaching or lower grade levels, this might work really well since you may see a limited amount of students, or you may see the same students each day. So this is another way you could possibly use it in your classroom. Here you have an example of a rubric, and so you can see some of that conditional formatting. I actually pulled this one off of the public templates page on Google, which is actually going to be linked in the description. But this one in particular is for, I'm guessing, some sort of essay. You can see they talk about intro, body, conclusion, so not really that much of a genius, just kind of pretty clear. I think that this is going to be for an English class. And if we look at the different parts here, again, they basically just input the data, and then they also included some conditional formatting where they made these boxes different colors. They also are able to move these rows or make them larger by clicking and dragging. So if I make this smaller, you may see that actually this will go over and this will go over into the next row. Now we can get rid of that. Pretty simple. If I just click on this column, you'll notice the entire row gets highlighted. And I'm going to do some formatting again where I call it merge cells, or sorry, text wrapping. And if I click on wrap text, you'll see that this whole box actually gets larger. So where you have too much text to fit in a particular row, it just moves down the next line. So this can actually, and I don't think it has, yeah, here we just have some data that's input in this, but we can actually format this, and I'll show you that on the next page, to actually calculate itself, which you can certainly, again, say it's redundant. You might be able to get that in your grade book, but I found this particularly useful for checking on student progress on, let's say, assignments they're working on in class, or just doing some progress checks. And I can pretty much see on the sheet, how much they've done, how much they haven't done, and maybe there's some reasons why they're not completing certain types of assignments. So here actually is a piece of a spreadsheet I used in one of my previous years where I was doing some gamification. Instead of using grades, like flat out grades, I use a total of experience points, which you can see is one of the columns right here, column B. So what I did was I collected information. So as students completed assignments, they were scored. They had the chance to correct them. And then when they returned them in or resubmitted them, then what I have here is a list of all the assignments that were completed. Now in this column, I have student chosen ID numbers. So they actually choose these, and they're completely unique to each student. So when I create a chart and I post those charts to show where students are at, they don't have their names up on the board or the screen or something like that. So it kind of removes that stigmatization. So if I wanted to, let's say, for example, I wanted to gather all this data here, I could count across. So we got 10, 20, 0. So that's a 30, 40, 50, 60, 80. And then if I keep going, you'll see some more. And then we have a total of 95. So I could input that number right now, but that's just going to leave it as a 95. What I can actually do is I can format this to calculate it on its own, so I can save myself some time here. And the way to do that is if I just get rid of that 95, what I want to do is I want to use what's called a function. So I'm going to insert a function, and I'm going to put a sum there. Now it's going to ask me to put from what value to what value. So I want to have the sum total of this particular cell, so that's C2, all the way over to K2, which is down here. And when I do that, it's actually going to calculate everything that's in this cell, and this cell all the way across. Now I can input those numbers manually, but as you can see, when I go across, okay, when I click on this first cell, if I hold down the Shift key, it's going to allow me to highlight all of those rows. And when I hit Enter, you'll see the total then appears. So I noticed before when I was talking about freezing, so here I can freeze these couple rows, and as I scan across, you'll see that they won't stay there. But if I freeze them, so I freeze 2 columns, I should say, what I can do is as I go across, you'll see they stay the same. So now I can see the student ID number as well as their experience points total. So if I wanted to move this down the list, I don't actually have to recreate that series of movements. I don't have to insert a new function here below. In order to run the function on the rest of these rows, all I have to do is click and drag this little square here. And when I do that, you'll see that it's going to insert this all the way across to the bottom. So here we can see that it's highlighting C7 through K7, and that's this row right here. And so the total is added, which is really nice. Now, if I change one of these totals, so let me change that to maybe like, let's say 25, you'll see the number jumps up over here. So it's a few simple tricks that you can use, and this might be something you use, like I said, as like an alternative to a grade book, or you could use it in addition to a grade book. I use this in addition to a grade book, and the students really appreciated seeing exactly where they're at. So what I could do is I can post a chart, and just by making the chart from these 2 columns here, it makes it very easy to show the students where they're at sort of in the grand scheme of things within the class or within a grade level. So these are just, again, some of the basic features and some of the uses you may have for Google Sheets. There's certainly other options out there. I just wanted to create a few of them for you and show you how they work. So again, this is a very basic tutorial. I know I didn't cover everything that could possibly be covered when it comes to Google Sheets. So if you have additional questions or comments as I will wrap up here in the finale, certainly I'll mention that again. But if you have questions or comments and things you want to see in particular, certainly please let me know in that comment section down below. So I'm going to wrap this up with some final thoughts, and we'll close episode 5. So now that you've seen the inside of Google Sheets, I just want to close with a few thoughts. As with any EdTech product, you want to take some time to think about what it does before adopting it. Now, anytime you adopt something new, there's a bit of a learning curve. So if you adopt a new EdTech product that doesn't really enhance what you're currently doing, it may not be worth your time using it. Now, in the case of Google Sheets, it does a lot more than just gather data. So we already have the ability to, through various applications or even just paper pencil, gather large amounts of data, even organize it, and even distribute it. The difference, though, with Google Sheets is that it allows you to do those same things, but it allows you to do it even quicker with some of the formatting, some of the functions which I showed you, and also one other feature, the share feature. You're actually able to send out large amounts of data to whoever it is you need to instantaneously. So in the upper right hand corner, I didn't show you in the look-in, but you can see it in the upper right hand corner of the browser on your sheet. You'll actually see a big blue button which says share. By clicking on that, I can type in the email whoever I need to send it to and send it off instantaneously. So that certainly beats writing it down, rewriting it, or even typing an email or printing it out and sending it to somebody. So there's certainly an enhancement there. Now, beyond that, Google Sheets is going to offer you all sorts of add-ons, and those add-ons is where the true potential of Google Sheets and many of the other applications in the Google Drive where that potential lies. So in Sheets, some of the add-ons are going to allow you to do things that are going to increase your efficiency, help with your data analysis, amongst many other things. And so I'll go into some of those scripts in future episodes. I'm not going to talk about them too much tonight. This is, as I said, just a basic or introductory view into Google Sheets. But they will be the feature of some of the future episodes, including episode 6. So you may want to stay tuned for that one. But in terms of Google Sheets, now that you've seen some of the basic features and also some of the potential uses in your classroom, hopefully you'll be able to use it. That's going to be it for episode 5 on Google Sheets. If you have questions or comments, I please encourage you to leave them down in the comment section below. I'll be happy to include them in future episodes or to answer to them even through the channel. Down in the description, you'll find a few links that are going to help you with some Google Sheets needs, including in there a public template gallery where you'll find all sorts of stuff from rubrics to schedules to help you get started with a little more complex Google Sheets working. And then you also find down there in that description section my social links. So again, feel free to share, subscribe, like. Really appreciate you taking the time to watch. We'll see you on the next go around. Thanks for watching.